Have you ever looked at your life and wondered why nothing has changed? You have the vision. You can see exactly what you want to build. You imagine yourself standing in the life you deserve. But when the moment comes to move, you don't. You whisper, "I'll start tomorrow." If you've ever felt the burning fire of ambition trapped inside a body that refuses to act, then Elias's story is your story. And what happens to him under that ancient tree may be the wake-up call you've been avoiding. Elias was a master of words. Every afternoon, as the villagers passed by, he would lean against the ancient tree and paint pictures with his voice. "By next season, this land will be unrecognizable," he'd promise, gesturing at the cracked earth. "I'll plant rows of olive trees there, a vineyard on that slope, maybe even dig a well." His neighbors would nod, some with hope, others with pity. They'd heard these plans before. Different words, same tree, same reclining figure. And while Elias spoke of tomorrow's glory, the sun moved across the sky, marking another day he didn't move from his throne of shade. The land was dying. Each morning brought new cracks spider-webbing across the dry earth, whispering accusations with every step Elias took. What were once fertile plots now lay barren, choked with brittle weeds that snapped at the slightest touch. His neighbors' fields flourished green and alive, a constant reminder of what his could have been. They stopped asking about his plans. Their silence cut deeper than any words. When they walked past his property, their eyes would linger for just a moment on the contrast between their abundance and his wasteland, then quickly look away. Pity had replaced hope, and Elias felt it all from beneath his tree. A stranger appeared on a day like any other, an old traveler with weathered hands and eyes that seemed to see through pretense. He stopped before Elias's tree and said nothing at first, just studied the young man sprawled in the shade. Then he reached into his worn satchel and produced an hourglass filled with shimmering gold sand. "This," he said, placing it on the ground between them, "is what you have left." Elias laughed nervously. "Left of what?" The stranger turned to leave. "Your potential. Every grain that falls is a moment you'll never recover. Watch it closely." Then he disappeared down the dusty road. Elias kept the hourglass beside him, watching the golden sand trickle down grain by grain. At first, it disturbed him. He'd pick it up, shake it gently, feel its weight in his palms. "Tomorrow," he'd tell himself, "tomorrow I'll start." But the shade was so comfortable, the tree's embrace so familiar. His body felt heavy, anchored to the earth by invisible chains forged from habit. He'd close his eyes for just a moment, and hours would vanish. Each time he woke, less sand remained in the top chamber. Each time he'd promise himself again, "Tomorrow, always tomorrow." The hourglass kept counting down. One morning, Elias tried to stand. A thorn bush had grown around the base of the tree, its twisted branches weaving through the roots where he always sat. He hadn't noticed it creeping closer, day by day, while he dozed and dreamed. Now its barbs caught his clothes, scratched his skin. He looked across his land with new eyes. Thorns everywhere. They'd consumed the pathways he'd once walked. They'd strangled the fence posts he'd meant to repair. His entire property had become a prison of his own neglect. The weeds hadn't grown overnight. They'd grown while he whispered, "Tomorrow." They'd grown in every moment he chose shade over soil. The sky darkened without warning. Black clouds rolled in from the horizon, swallowing the sun. Wind tore through the valley, bending trees and sending dust devils spinning across the barren fields. Elias felt the first heavy drops hit his face. Then he understood. The storm would wash away what little topsoil remained. Everything would be gone, not just wasted but destroyed beyond recovery. The hourglass tipped over in the wind, sand scattering across the cracked earth. No more time. No more tomorrows. Nature had drawn the line. He could stay in his comfortable shade and watch his last chance disappear, or he could move. Now, Elias ran into the storm. Rain lashed his face as he grabbed a shovel and drove it into the earth. His hands, soft from months of idleness, screamed in protest. Blisters formed and burst. His back seized with pain he'd forgotten existed. Mud sucked at his feet. Thunder drowned out his gasps. Every fiber of his body begged him to return to the tree, to wait for better weather to start tomorrow. But he didn't stop. He dug trenches to catch the water. He hauled stones to build barriers. His muscles burned. His lungs ached. And for the first time in years, Elias felt alive. 3 weeks later, Elias saw it. A tiny green sprout pushing through the dark soil he'd saved from the storm. He dropped to his knees, hands still wrapped in cloth to protect his healing blisters. It was barely visible, fragile as a whisper, but it was real. Not imagined. Not promised. Real. His throat tightened. All those years of grand speeches, and he'd never felt anything like this. This small, stubborn shoot of life was worth more than 1,000 perfect plans. It existed because he'd bled for it, because he'd chosen pain over comfort. He touched the sprout gently, reverently. Something broken inside him began to mend. Months passed. The ancient tree still stood, but Elias no longer sought its shade. He rose before dawn now, hands calloused and strong, back straight with purpose. His fields had transformed into the vision he'd once only described. Olive trees stretched toward the sky. Grapevines climbed their trellises. The well he'd dug ran clear and deep. Neighbors stopped to admire what had seemed impossible. But Elias barely noticed their praise. He was too busy planting the next row, building the next terrace, living the next moment. The hourglass sat on a shelf in his home, empty now. He didn't need it anymore. Tomorrow had finally become today. The lesson is brutal but liberating. Your potential has an expiration date. Like Elias's hourglass, every day you choose comfort over action. You're not preserving your dreams for later. You're watching them die in real time. Ambition without movement is just decorated procrastination. The tragedy isn't that you might fail if you try. It's that you're guaranteed to fail if you don't. Your tomorrow is a graveyard where good intentions go to rot. But here's the hope. The moment you break the cycle, even if your hands blister and your body screams, you'll feel more alive than you ever did dreaming under the shade. Start now, not tomorrow. Now.